Welcome to another episode of Auto Mundial, the weekly car news and reviews show, where this week we have the new Touareg R from Volkswagen.
And we have a 268 mph hypercar from America, the Zinger 21C, as well as a new EV from Kia. First though,
Renault, the French purveyor of stylish hatchbacks, has revealed a new concept car. This is the Morphoz, and as you can see, it's quite the departure from the brand's usual fare. In true concept car fashion, it's full of mad styling and engineering quirks. The Morphoz previews Renault's new CMF EV platform that the brand aims to have in production by 2022. This car, though, has some tricks up its sleeve. Drivers can extend the physical size of the vehicle as well as increase the electric range by adding some more batteries. It's unlikely we'll see much of this tech trickle down into production Renaults anytime soon, but as ever, it's a stunning showcase of what might one day be possible.
With the success of the four-door coupe trend started by Mercedes with models like the CLS and the popular CLA, it seems strange that BMW has taken so long to release this 2 Series Gran Coupe. Following on from the 4-door 8 Series and 3, 5 and 6 Series GT models, it follows the now familiar recipe of adding a low sweeping roof to create the coupe shape. Based on the new 1 Series rather than the outgoing 2 Series, the 2 Series Gran Coupe uses the same controversial front-wheel drive layout, although this one is a little different. The M235i, as its name suggests, the sportiest version of the Gran Coupe currently on offer. As such, it gets an all-wheel drive system mated to a turbocharged 2-litre motor, putting out 302 brake horsepower. 0 to 62 mph is dealt with in 4.9 seconds, while top speed is limited to 155. Remarkably though, the pint-sized coupe can still achieve 42 mpg, demonstrating just how far manufacturers have come in the development of performance models. Styling-wise, the Gran Coupe is a clear step away from the outgoing rear-wheel drive 2 Series. The bulbous front end is carried more or less straight over from the 1 Series hatchback, with its silly, swollen kidney grills and narrow headlights. Everything else is brand new. From the A-pillar back, the Gran Coupe is certainly a much more stylish alternative to its hatchback equivalent. The dimensions seem a little odd at first, but when you really take in its side profile, you can't help but admire BMW's ability to transform a practical 5-door into a rakish coupe. Compared to the regular 2 Series, which is actually a proper 2-door coupe, the new car is much more spacious, both in the front and the back, making it a halfway house between the rather cramped 2 Series and the practical 1 Series. But the M235i is about more than just practicality. Standard kit includes launch control, a limited slip differential, and adaptive suspension with various different settings depending on your driving style.
However, it's not the only small 4-door coupe with a bit of grunt. This is our class favourite, the Mercedes CLA. There are 2 different AMG versions available. The flagship 45, a 415 brake horsepower monster, or the entry-level 35, which competes directly against the M235i. In fact, on paper, it looks as if the M division has been copying AMG's homework. Both cars produce exactly 302 brake horsepower. Both cars hit 62 from rest in 4.9 seconds, and both have an electronically limited top speed of 155. Both cars are all-wheel drive, and both are slightly less practical versions of regular hot hatchbacks. The only thing that separates them is price, but even that's close, with both cars coming in at just under £40,000. Inside though, it's a clear win for Mercedes, with all the fabulous bits from a regular A-Class, but with some added AMG flair. On the road though, the little AMG feels wonderfully compact with its diminutive size and responsive steering helping you to maintain some serious momentum. While the optional adaptive suspension offers a surprisingly comfortable ride, even in its firmest setting. Sadly though, like the regular A35 hatchback, the noise is a little disappointing. It sounds sporty, but it isn't a particularly nice sound, especially when compared to the raucous 45 version. The Mercedes CLA 35 though is an altogether more sensible everyday option. 90% of the time it's as docile and relaxing as a regular CLA. But every now and then when the mood strikes and the road is clear, it can squat down and fire you towards the next corner at sensational speeds.
Both of these cars are remarkably similar, but for now at least the Mercedes offers the greater range of body styles with a shooting brake estate version, as well as a proper saloon version to add another dose of confusion. They are though both stylish alternatives to already impressive hot hatches.
Over the last few years, we've seen pretty much every mainstream manufacturer slowly make strides into the electric car market. Tesla kicked off the trend, and now everyone from Peugeot to Porsche is getting on board. But for Kia, electric cars are nothing new. Their first was the Kia Ray EV, launched in 2013 and developed exclusively for the South Korean market. Then, in 2014, the rest of the world got its first taste of Kia electrification with this, the electric version of its subcompact crossover, the Soul. Coined the Soul EV, it was based on the petrol-powered version. With a range of just 93 miles, it quickly got outdated. Even the introduction of an uprated battery for 2018 models meant the range was still way below its rivals. It was definitely due an upgrade. Which thankfully it now has with this, the 2020 Kia Soul EV. While petrol models will still make their way to the States, in Europe you won't find a petrol or diesel Soul in the showroom. A bold move, but Kia is confident in its EV technology. It's powered by a 64 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery that it shares with the e-Niro and Hyundai Kona Electric, which is good enough for an impressive range of 280 miles. The power also gets a boost, up to 201 brake horsepower from 109, and the 0 to 60 time has been slashed by the best part of 2 seconds. The entry-level price is also comparable with that of the Mini Electric or Nissan Leaf, with the Titan model the cheapest available. However, in some markets, the all-guns-blazing first edition is the sole offering in the showroom and almost a third more expensive. This model does come with a lot of extra equipment though, and of course, all specs come with Kia's 7-year warranty. It's quick to charge too, with a 100 kilowatt charger getting it to 80% from empty in under an hour. That means no more hanging around in motorway service stations all afternoon discussing range anxiety with other EV owners. The Soul has always been Kia's quirkiest offering, and the new version is no different with its new long and thin headlight design, but it still retains its boxy look. Also new is the boomerang-shaped rear lights, which along with the black painted strips surround the rear window. We think it looks quite good. Inside, the Soul is very spacious, which is unsurprising given its cuboid shape, but the boot is a little bit of a letdown. With just over 300 litres of space, it has a smaller compartment than the Polo. That puts it more in line with a hatchback than an SUV then. So, how does it compare to its rivals?
This is the stylish new Mini Electric. Like any Mini, it's a fun-looking car, but side by side with the Kia Soul, the Mini is certainly the more conservative option. If spec'd correctly, it looks near enough identical to a regular petrol Mini, something that's sure to appeal to many buyers. But against the Soul EV, it hugely falls down on range. At 145 miles, it's half that of the Soul EV. And for buyers looking to commute or travel long distances, this could be a deal breaker. So what about the classic alternative, the Nissan Leaf? A new inverter in the latest model bumped the power up to 150 brake horsepower and plunged 0 to 60 to under 8 seconds. More bhp than the Soul EV then, but similar acceleration. Again though, the Nissan loses out on its range of just 168 miles. This would have been class leader a year or two ago, but now it's slipping down the pile.
So while the Nissan was the go-to option in the affordable EV class not too long ago, the Kia may have just stolen its crown. It's modern, well-built, and its range makes it far more usable than the Nissan. Like its sister cars, the e-Niro and Hyundai Kona Electric, it has blown the Leaf away. The future of electric cars appears to be fully charged.
After the break, the Volkswagen Touareg R and the Zinger 21C.
Still to come, a 3D printed hypercar. But first,
It's been nearly 2 decades now since we first saw Volkswagen's first attempt at a production SUV. It was part of a VW Group platform share with Audi and Porsche to create an off-road vehicle that handled like a saloon car. The Touareg entered production in 2002 and was joined by the Audi Q7 and Porsche Cayenne. And 18 years later, it's still punching above its weight, offering a cut-price alternative to the likes of the Lamborghini Urus and the Bentley Bentayga, with which it shares a platform. And like the Audi RS-Q8 and the Porsche Cayenne Turbo S, it was only a matter of time before the VW Group souped up its own flagship SUV. So you'd expect, as with the Audi or Porsche, the new Touareg would have a twin-turbo V8 to boost power and price tag. But you'd be wrong. That's because the new VW Touareg R is powered by a 3-litre turbocharged V6 petrol engine, with a 14 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery crammed into the boot space. This means it's the first plug-in hybrid to carry VW's R badge. The result is 456 brake horsepower to all four wheels through the permanent four-wheel drive system. This is certainly a lot of power, but not as ridiculous as the 600 horsepower you find in an Audi. The 0 to 62 miles per hour time is around the 5-second mark, meaning it misses out on the neck-snapping acceleration of a Cayenne or Urus, but it's certainly no slouch. The Touareg R always starts off in the fully electric E mode and stays there until 87 miles per hour. After this, or at full throttle, the V6 kicks in, up to the electronically limited 155 miles per hour top speed. And with the new hybrid system and E mode comes some aesthetic changes to the R model. New exterior features include exclusive R-style bumpers front and back, as well as air intake grills with black louvres and various bits of spurious black trim. In fact, without the bright blue paintwork, the Touareg R would be rather stealthy. Inside the cabin, and naturally, there is a lot of infotainment. A 12-inch screen sits in front of the driver, while a huge 15-inch touchscreen is cradled in the centre console. On top of this, there's a plethora of driving modes from Eco through to Sport, and even off-road and snow options. Inside, there's plenty to keep you comfy, with an optional upgraded sound system and some fancy leather seats tanned with olive oil. All this looks very promising, but the Touareg R is not alone in the sporty plug-in SUV category. One option is one of the Touareg stablemates, the Cayenne. In particular, the Porsche Cayenne E Hybrid. As its predecessor did 18 years ago, the Cayenne E Hybrid utilises the same platform as the Touareg R. With 455 brake horsepower, it has roughly the same power as the Volkswagen and has a similar top speed of 157 miles per hour. The interior is more upmarket, but uses much of the same equipment as the VW. But what about options from outside the VW stable?
The Volvo XC90 T8 seems like the perfect candidate. A PHEV SUV with 30-mile electric range and 7 seats. It blends typical Volvo practicality with minimalist Scandinavian style beautifully, with a light, airy cabin and modern design. The XC90 T8 has around 400 horsepower, making it much less powerful than the VW, but it can still reach 62 from rest in 5.3 seconds. However, the 7 seats are a rare commodity in the class and worth a bit extra for usability. And this practicality is translated in the price. The Volvo is slightly cheaper than the Porsche, although we expect the VW to match it. It is starting to feel its age now, though, with dated infotainment compared with the Touareg's up-to-date system.
The Volkswagen Touareg R, then, is a slightly more under-the-radar alternative to your typical Porsches and BMWs. It's not as in-your-face, yet packs just as much punch.
Hyundai has been on a bit of a roll in the last few years, with the i30 taking on the likes of the Ford Focus and Volkswagen Golf with great success, and the fastback version offering a cut-price alternative to the German four-door coupes. Now though, fresh for 2020, Hyundai has given both versions a facelift. With the new Golf going on sale this year, the third-generation i30 gets some updated styling, new tech, and a whole new range of engines. The new entry-level motor is a heavily reworked version of the old 1.4. Capacity is now up to 1.5 litres with 108 brake horsepower. There's also a turbocharged version of the same engine with 158 horsepower that gains a 48-volt mild hybrid system. Like many of these systems that we've seen, it recovers energy under deceleration for smoother stop-starts and engine-off coasting. The aesthetic updates are rather more subtle though, with a sporty new front end, including a revised bumper, grille and LED running lights. Non-N-line models look a little less sporty with more chrome, but all versions get the same updates at the rear, with new taillights being the only real difference. There are some new paint and alloy wheel options, but the biggest changes are on the inside, with improved infotainment, optional digital driver's display, and a host of new safety tech to keep it competitive against its European rivals.
With the cancellation of this year's Geneva Motor Show, there were plenty of cars that we never got to witness in the flesh. Of course, there was the usual array of hatchbacks and SUVs that we'll see very shortly. But we're not sure when we'll next get to see this, the remarkable Zinger 21C. A mild hybrid crossover, it's not. Instead, the 21C is a red-blooded hypercar with over 1,200 horsepower. This immense power comes courtesy of a twin-turbocharged 2.9-litre flat-crank V8 that revs to 11,000 RPM, with all drive being sent to the rear wheels. And just to make things even more terrifying, there are two electric motors powering the front wheels, resulting in a 0 to 62 miles per hour time of just 1.9 seconds. What's more, Zinger claims that the 21C will go from 0 to 248 miles per hour and back to 0 again in 29 seconds. It's certainly quick then. Top speed is said to be 268, but with a 1-to-1 power-to-weight ratio, the Zinger should be just as impressive through the corners. Built and engineered in the USA, the 21C is constructed using state-of-the-art 3D printing, with an alloy and carbon fibre chassis. There are different versions available, set up for track or road use, with track models getting some aggressive aero and a big wing. But perhaps the most outrageous detail is the seating configuration. The passenger sits behind the driver in tandem, meaning the Zinger is narrow with a McLaren F1-style central driving position. It also means the 21C looks every bit the hypercar as it takes aim squarely at the Aston Martin Valkyrie and McLaren Speedtail. Prices have not been announced, but only 80 21Cs will be built, making this one of the most exclusive hypercars on the market.
Join us again next week on Auto Mundial as we take our first look at the all-new Volkswagen Golf GTI.